Hi there. Obliged to meet you. My name, that's the way we used to do, like an old fogey like me. We introduce ourselves. Normally, we introduce by our name, our assigned name at birth. In my case, I don't have an assigned name at birth, so my assigned name now, which I've had quite a few assigned names, trust me. I've had so many names that I can't forget. I've, I've had so many names that I can't remember them all. But that ain't that bad because I don't really care. but, but my current assigned name, and my last name is Mar Party. That's Marparty. And so I noticed on the Google search, I noticed there was some, sorry about that camera tipping all funky like that. And it's rocking like that. But I am living in earthquake country, but we ain't having one right now. But we could have one any minute. Living in earthquake country, that's where I'm at. But so if anybody tells you that they're the real Mar Party, I am legally the real Mar Party. That is my assigned name right now, and that I will probably remain with that one for a while. So as you can tell, I've been around for a while. And man, this world is way different than I was expecting. Like I remember back in the day when I was younger and I was working in Simi Valley and I was 5 stories up and I'm hanging over the side of a building in 110-degree weather, pounding nails with no safety equipment on, wondering if I'm gonna fall. Yeah, in Simi Valley, California. And then after doing maybe a day doing something like that, and carrying these joists were about 2 inches thick, maybe an inch and a half thick. Joists is like they used to use them, they probably still use them. It's like a piece of wood to hold up a floor or a roof. So you use these pieces of wood. But anyway, so I'll just say like a joist is like it's 2 inches thick one way, and then you got like 12, 16 inches the other way, and then they're about 12, 16 feet long, and they are heavy. And I'm walking on top of these, and I'm on top of this roof with no safety equipment on. Then after that, if there ain't no traffic jam, I got a 20-minute ride to 40 minutes, depending on the route between there and Santa Monica and Venice Beach. And then when I got there, I'd light me up a doobie and I'd have me a beer and I'd do a little bit of surfing and pass out on the beach. This is true story I'm telling you here. I ain't cooking this stuff up. This is real. And then I would pass out on the beach, Santa Monica or Venice Beach, and I was safe. No, nobody mind me, nobody bother me. And then I wake up the next morning and I go back up to Simi Valley. And it was so hot when I was working up in Simi Valley. I remember that I would drink like 2 gallons of water during I'd work maybe an 8 to 10 hour shift. I would drink like 2 gallons of water, and I wouldn't go to the bathroom once. In 110-degree weather, I was sweating that much. I was sweating quite a bit. So, anyway, so that was my life back then. And LA was a really nice city, and the 101 was a really beautiful, nice road, and Hollywood was really nice. I lived for a spell in Hollywood. And then I lived in Beverly Hills. I lived in the Beverly Hills for about a year. Now, I lived right in downtown Beverly Hills, so I could walk to all the major stores, all the major hotels, all the major casting agencies and everything. I lived right there in Beverly Hills. That was later on in life. That was about 125. I think right around when I was living in the Beverly Hills area and everything. And the people there were actually pretty cool. Like, you think them type of people in Beverly Hills, them rich folk, that they'd be having some kind of attitude, but most of the people I dealt with, from the cashiers to the people in the stores to people on the street, when I was living in Beverly Hills back then, we're dialing back the clock quite a bit. I had hair up here back then. That was years ago. Yeah, I have some fond memories. And the 101, that road, you could drive yourself yonder. You could drive on up into Malibu, go to the pier there, which was quite beautiful, quite nice. You could walk up through Hollywood Hills, and you could go to Griffith's Observatory, where there's that one picture where the Terminator, I think it was in T1, Terminator 1, where he's overlooking the city. You can get that nice night view where he's overlooking the city from the Griffiths Observatory. If you ever go there, I think if that view is still there like that, if it still looks the same. But things have changed quite a bit since then. But there were some good old days back then. And there'd still be some signs in the parking lot that would say, maybe your things in your car aren't going to be in your car when you get back to it. We can't guarantee that your things are going to be in your car when you get back to it. There's one of them type of signs. I think it also said we can't guarantee that your car will be there either. But that was just kind of the thing. And then also I lived within, when I was living I lived in Hollywood. I lived in North Hollywood. I lived in the Valley. I lived in Valley Village when I was in LA. Just a beautiful weather. Just a beautiful weather. And not a lot of smog, a little bit. Like you get high up there and you get high on some of them hiking trails and stuff, you'd see a little bit of smog going over the city near the rattlesnake breeding ground. But yeah, I'm glad that I got to drive that. And then you if you wanted a really cool view, you could get yourself up on that Mulholland Drive, they'd call it, and that was up at the top of all of that, and you could get yourself a nice view of Burbank and the rest of LA and everything from all over, and the reservoir up there on the Mulholland Drive. You could get yourself a glance, a gander at that. And then there's a bunch of winding hills all throughout there where they've shot all kinds of different movies in some of them houses along there. Yeah. That was a good old LA. In fact, years ago when I lived there in the LA, I lived there before they had cell phones. They had a cell phone like this, but they didn't have like the smartphone like that, like everybody's got now. So that was back when you had to use like a Thompson's guide, like if you're going to shoot, say you're working in the movie business, say you're actually doing some little bit of acting or something like that, and you had to go to different locations, you'd have to pull over and look at that Thomas guide. You'd have like a basic guide of your 405 and your I-5 and all that stuff. And you get to know your way around town after a while from living there for a spell. But some of these locations, to really dial it into a specific street, you'd need your Thomas guide. And then also in LA, I remember one time I went to this gas station. And he said, "Hey man, you got off that freeway way back there, back on that other ramp to get some gas, didn't you?" I go, "Yes, sir, I did." And he goes, "If I were you, I would get right back on the freeway and I would get out of, I wouldn't go in this part of, I wouldn't stay in this part of town too long." He was real part about it. Like he kind of let me know that I didn't want to go tooling around some of those neighborhoods. I guess even way back yonder, back then, there were stories. Now, I never heard this actually happening to anybody, of people driving up a road and never coming back down. Just like they drove up that road and they vanished. And I heard some stories about that. I don't know how true that is. Oh man, there were some beautiful days, but there were some horrible traffic jams. Yeah, I haven't been there in LA. Last time I went through LA was maybe 5 months ago, and I was just blown right on through. I had another place I was going to go, so I didn't spend no time there. It's changed so much, I don't think I'd really recognize it anymore. It's changed. The whole country's changed. Yeah. There was some, so that was back, yeah, so I lived in LA when, yeah, you had to use Thomas Guide to get around if you were going to work on different jobs and stuff. And, yeah, it was nice. It was nice. The whole country was really beautiful. And rent was affordable. No matter where you live, you could pack yourself up. You had a decent paying job, halfway decent paying job. Somewhere you could pack yourself up and then move on yonder to a different part of the country, go through Montana in the summer, look at all the beautiful mountains and all that stuff. You could drive yourself through North Dakota or go through the South Dakota and look at all that terrain and all that stuff. And the Florida beaches and Orange Beach in Alabama, and Kansas City, Missouri, and yeah, and all through Florida. I drove all through there, all the way from Pensacola, and there used to be a establishment called the Floribama. It was on the Florida-Alabama bar. And I forget the name of that island, the Key, they called it, and it was just beautiful. And St. Petersburg, and Miami, and Florida was just really, really beautiful. That white sand. I was talking about the most beautiful beaches in the world. I've been through the Bahamas before. I was working on a cruise ship. I've worked on a cruise ship as an engineer, and then I worked on one as like part of the crew. I've worked different ways and all that stuff. And Aruba, and I stopped a bunch of different islands, St. Thomas, different islands in the but the beaches in Florida, I would say were the best ones that I saw, but maybe I haven't seen all the beaches in Australia. I had an Aussie kind of telling me that their beaches are better, but I just let it slide. But that was before they dumped a bunch of oil in there before that happened. So I don't know if the sands are quite as nice as they used to be, but maybe the hurricanes, there's always a hurricane or a typhoon going through there. You'll wipe through there and clean all that out. Now on Highway 1 from Santa Barbara, San Luis Obispo, Malibu, all the way on the 1 was just breathtaking. And that was back in the day. You could just, this is true, I'm speaking true. You could just pull into a park. You didn't have to reserve a month or a billion years ahead. You could just pull into a park along the beach, along the 1, all the way up into San Francisco and the Bay Area. Years ago, that was when houses up there were probably going for a couple $100,000 in Sunnyvale and San Jose and in those areas, in South Bay area. And you could just stop anywhere along that 1 and find yourself a beach and a ranger, and it cost you about $10-12. Spend the night, except for Malibu, they were a little bit pricier. Their beach park and all that stuff. I'm just kind of rambling, but I went all through over. I drove all over. I've driven from the East Coast to the West Coast at least 30 times in my life. And America is just a beautiful nature and beautiful country. Just going through Nevada and all them different states, North Dakota, South Dakota, all that flat farmland and everything, and Wyoming, and Oregon and Southern Oregon and Idaho, New Mexico, Texas. That's a long drive all the way through Texas on the 10. If you catch the weather good, you catch the weather on the bad side in the winter. You can get kind of squirrely there on the road. But, Yeah, that was back when you could afford, when gas was cheaper. And I remember you used to be able to work on your own car. You know, you didn't have to be no expert or nothing. I remember back in the good old days, I'd bring my $200 or $300 car into a Shucks. What was there? There was Shucks. I think mainly Shucks. There was a couple other different auto parts stores. I was just drive in there and I'd say, hey, my car's making a funny sound, or this is making a funny sound, or this thing ain't right. You got a few extra minutes? Can you get off the till, come out and take a look at my car for me? And they ain't too busy. They come out and take a look and tell me what's wrong. And then I just buy the part right off them. I'd say, hey, I got some tools in my trunk. Do you mind if can I fix my car in your parking lot? Are you okay with that? And yeah, and they'd tell me just get, not near the front door. We got the customers coming in and out, just over in the corner lot, over in the side of the store. And yeah, you can go ahead and change your starter or your water pump, whatever problem you have, So I got to see lots of beautiful nature. I really miss the nature and road tripping through that country. And it was pretty safe too, so I driving for a few days, I'm starting to hallucinate. Like a 2-lane road, and I'm seeing 8 lanes and maybe a purple dinosaur. I'm starting to hallucinate pretty bad. I know it's time to pull over. So sometimes I pull over the side of the road. One time I was drinking a brewski. I was going through most people think the hottest place in the world is in the Midwest. I mean, in the Middle East, but the hottest place in the world is in Stovepipe, Nevada. It's in Nevada. I mean, in Stovepipe, California. That's California. That's in Death Valley. They call it Death Valley for a reason, because in the day it gets pretty toasty, and at night it drops down into the 70s or so. So anyways, one night I was drinking brewskis. I was drinking a lot of brewskis, and I just started to see the purple dinosaurs or whatever they were, different critters. And I knew that they weren't real, and I knew it was time for me to pull over. But luckily I left the air conditioner on in my car, so I didn't become a part of Death Valley, if you know what I'm talking about. I'm sure you can figure that out. And then Florida was quite nice in the winter time, but in the summertime it'd get a little bit hot for my liking. Now the 101, my other favorite beautiful scenery, coastal scenery. All the way on up yonder through Santa Barbara, you just get yourself a spot and just hang out, chill out, drink a brewski, and I had lots of good times. Yeah. I road tripped all over the States. I was working me an engineering job back then, so I got real lucky. I get me good paying engineering job, and then when I got my time off, I get me eight months off, sometimes 10 months off. Sometimes I get like a 2 to 4 month vacation, if you will, a paid vacation. And so then during my paid vacation, that's when I do my road tripping through the States, and that's when I lived in Hollywood. I lived right in downtown Hollywood. I mean, if there was something going on down the street, I didn't have to even, I could just walk there. I didn't have to go pay some parking meter or something, Or if I wanted to go to an audition, say I ain't got the part, I ain't got no part in no movie or nothing like that, I gotta go to the audition. And back then, it wasn't like it is now. Like, you had to have a picture, an 8x10, and they usually wanted them black and white. They didn't want color back way back when. And then you'd attach your resume to the back, your experience, your acting experience, and then they're like, we'll give you a call if we're interested. They're always going to give you a call if they're interested. And anyways, but I picked me up some jobs that way, and then also I had me some agents. And then back when I was young and handsome, and I had some hair here, and I was handsome and all that, I would actually, a couple times I got approached, not by scammers, but by the real deal, but like movie producers or directors that would offer me parts. But I turned down a few, and then later a few of them movies became successful, so I can't say I didn't have some opportunities. I haven't had any, you know. But I do miss what it was, what America was. And also, there was a middle class. So that means like an average working folk, like a mechanic at a gas station, or a guy driving a garbage truck or something like that, or a manager at like a retail store or something like that, you know, just a regular hard-working person. They could buy a house. They could buy a house and have it paid off before they passed away. I mean, they could literally own the house outright, other than the property taxes, you know. You got to pay them property taxes, so they will take that house back from you. But, you know, back when there was a middle class, I remember that. There was actually a middle class in America. I got to live in them days when the average person could buy a house that wasn't a pipe dream. And I feel sorry for the generation now, because it seems like that opportunity is getting a lot more difficult for them young married couples. So I remember when there was a middle class, and the price of everything was a lot cheaper. I was renting this one time. I was living up. I lived in Vancouver, Canada. I went to UBC for a while. I lived on campus. I lived in a really nice place, and the rent wasn't that expensive and all that stuff. I was actually considering becoming a Canadian citizen, or maybe I was. I'm not sure. But see, the strange thing about my life is there's pieces of it that are missing. Now, you wonder, why would somebody have pieces of their life missing, and why would they remember different pieces? Do they have PTSD? And yeah, I do. I do have the PTSD. Or they always put a new fancy word on it, CPTSD. CPTSD, they call it now. But I don't want to get into detail about that part of my life. But that, and then plus I was really heavy into the partying. Like I said, my real name is Mar Party. Because I would party so much, they had this stuff called PCP, acid and all kinds of things. And that was back, not everybody could get access to drugs. So I had I was able to get them, but not the average person couldn't. Like now, anybody can get them. So when I got them, not going to name off all the ones I'd spend all night doing that. They weren't mixed with chemicals that were harmful for you. So that's why, like, yes, the PCP and the dust did erase a couple months here and there from my memory. I'm being straight up with you. I have some sections of my life and periods of time I can't recollect. But I know why that is. Like, sometimes I would just not know where I was for a while, and then I'd find some matchbooks. That's how I'd tell where I went, is I'd find matchbooks. That was back when they used to have matchbooks. And then, like, if you went to a restaurant or a bar establishment like that, it would usually have the name of the place on their matchbooks. That was a part of the advertisement. So I'd have a pile of these things on the floor. And so I'd go through the pile maybe after a couple month run or 3-month run or something like that of when I was partying. And I'd say, oh, yeah, I went there, but I don't remember it, but I was there. I got the matchbook from that area. And that was also if you got yourself a ticket in a state, like a speeding ticket or something like that, they had like a thing where like it would stay on the record for like a couple years and it would drop off. So you would just steer, you would avoid that state. And then all that stuff would just kind of magically disappear and you could drive back through there yonder. And if you got stopped, it wasn't a problem. But eventually they connected all that up by computer. And also, like, I could drive through Montana. Not saying that I did. I'm just saying that I could, right? In the daytime, I could drive maybe 140, 150, something like that. I could drive. One time I drove, I think it was 405 or I-90 up in Washington. This was still in the afternoon. This was when rush hour was beginning. Now, this would be impossible to do nowadays, but I remember clocking out at 1:30 on that floating bridge. I think it was 405. Yeah, I think I clocked out at 1:30. Last time I checked the speedo in that Chevy Malibu with 350 in it.